Hey, what's up guys, it's Renaldo here. So this video is going to focus on a young dynamic South African woke leftist known as Pieter Kriel that is blasted onto the scene thanks to leftist mainstream media putting him on a pedestal and saying, listen to what this young white South African has to say because it's counter to what the right is saying and therefore he must be right. That's right. So, for those of you that don't know, Pieter Kriel is a 21-year-old young leftist. I think that's safe to say. I'm not here to climb into his character. I'm not here to discriminate against his age or any of that. Just want to lay the facts on the table. So, Pieter Kriel has for many years, I think for 2-3 years at least, made videos about South Africa and politics and given his input. And at the time, the media had their lovelies, the white people that they would use as a counter argument to any reasonable argument from the right. And now that they've kind of run out of new people, they've found Pieter Kriel. So he's the flavor of the month. He's now appearing on all mainstream media shows, SABC, probably ENCA. People are writing about him. You can see him on IOL, where people are saying, who is Pieter Kriel? And IOL's writing pieces about him and referencing his videos. Don't really go into actually who Pieter Kriel is. Don't provide background information, whether he's studying something, if he has a job, if he's paid taxes, none of those things. So this is the media's new darling at the moment. They want to have a counter argument for people on the right. Apparently, there's no black individuals that they can use for this. They have to use a token white guy to point out the flaws in the right's arguments. But then the big question here, of course, is, well, what is the argument? What is Pieter Kriel saying that so many people on the left are supporting? And what is the counter argument to what the people on the right is saying, whether white, black, colored or Indian? Because, despite what mainstream media would like you to believe, the right does not solely consist of white people. There are many black individuals, colored individuals and Indian individuals on the right side that is just hurtful with what is happening in South Africa. Now, the best example that I can probably give you as to Pieter Kriel's thinking and his beliefs as a 21-year-old is the following video.
I think, like you said, it's very needed, but we need to rethink how we're going to execute on it. Because otherwise, other countries look at what's happening investor-wise in South Africa, and when they see the potential of taking away land, that rings red alarms in their head. They don't want to invest in a country where their new warehouse could suddenly be taken away from the government. But let's say now, let's rethink it. Let's say we do not allow foreign companies to come into South Africa and do business here unless they're willing to give 40 or 50% of their value, their land, to the rights of the people and share that. Right? So you don't have to give us the land on which your factory stands, but we want to share the profits in that factory to people across South Africa because they deserve it's their land.
Can we please take a moment to unpack that? This is who the leftist media has decided should be the voice of the left in South Africa. Somebody that literally just said that if businesses want to come to South Africa and do business, as if we are this thriving metropolis where everybody wants to come and invest and we must actually prevent businesses from entering because there's so many, He is saying that what companies need to do is, all right, we will promise never ever to take the land, but we want profit share. And then he came out with this figure of 40 to 50%. So can we just use one example? Let's use Volkswagen in the Eastern Cape. Now, the land that the factory is built on, let's argue, is worth 50 million rand. Just the land, you know. Obviously, I'm not talking about the actual infrastructure on top of it. I'm just talking about the land. And I think that number is very, very, very high, considering without the plant, that land would be actually useless because it's not in a favorable area in the town. It's not considered ideal property. If you build housing on it, if you want to get 50 million for it, you wouldn't. So I'm being very, very optimistic with the value of the property. Now, if we have to look at Pieter Kriel's assumption that you can come and build your factory here, we want profit share, you don't have to pay for the land, and we won't take the land away from you. So with that now in mind, how much turnover does Volkswagen in Uitenhage make? It's billions. Billions and billions of rands. So he wants 50% of that given to the people. We don't know who, because you know that, why would you want to go into the nitty gritty? Let's just focus on, hey, who actually owned the land? Was it an actual fact a Xhosa person, or was it the Zulu person, or was it the Khoisan person that was there first? Because that's going to create a whole new set of new battles and fights. Because a Xhosa person might come and say, hey, this was my land. And then a Khoisan person might come and say, brother, I've been here 100 years before you. So now that creates another argument in between the African tribes, if you will. But Pieter Kriel's solution for foreign investment is, hey everybody, we over here. Be sure to come to South Africa, know that you won't own the property, but we won't take the property away from you if you sign on the dotted line that we can get between 40 and 50% of your turnover. So a company like Volkswagen, the land is worth 50 million. It's very high. Their turnover is billions. So let's say it's 1 billion rand, their turnover. So he wants 400 million rand of that just to automatically go out the window and go towards the people that initially owned the land. So not only are you overpaying for that land 10 times, but nobody is paying attention to the fact that research and development costs, recruitment costs, building the factory costs. You know, like, it's as if Pieter Kriel believes that one day the land is there and the next day there's suddenly a factory on top of it that costs nobody anything. And now, because that factory has the privilege of being in South Africa, they must now pay 40 to 50% of their turnover. Fuck. Well done to the leftist media for raising Pieter Kriel up to be your knight in shining armor. I mean, really. I saw Pieter Kriel lash out at somebody for their age. There's a TikTok video that he made that was shared with me in which he criticizes politicians when they get too old to be relevant. They go onto TikTok to stay relevant. So he's the one that brought age up, right? So let me use age now. Pieter Kriel is 21 years old. We've got no idea anything with regards to his background. We don't know who his mom is, who his dad is, what they do for a living, whether he still lives at home with them, whether he lives on his own. You know, we don't know their economic standings. We don't know what they've done in the past. We don't know if Pieter has even filled out a tax form, if he's registered to pay tax. We don't know if he's got a job. We don't know how he got that job, if he does have one. We don't know if he's studying. We don't know anything about Pieter Kriel. And I'm not interested to find out more because I can see the Psyops right here. This is mainstream media putting somebody on a pedestal because he is saying what they want to hear. Now, we've seen that in the past with that young EFF girl and that young EFF guy that decided to join the EFF, and then the media made a big hoo-ha about them. So he's the flavor of the month, and obviously he's loving all this attention, and I can understand why. Look, I don't have any personal issues with Pieter Kriel. I mean, he's 21 years old. I think it's probably a form of bullying if I say anything because I'm literally double his age. And that doesn't mean that I'm more knowledgeable and that I deserve respect, because I don't care about your age. That is irrelevant. But what is important with regards to this discussion is his history and what he is currently doing. Because if you're going to stand on a pedestal and preach to other people about what they should think, how they should feel, and what they should do, then, of course, your own actions become important. So, unfortunately for him, his age does play a part, because he is speaking to people that have opened businesses, that run successful businesses, that pay tax, that has their own history and backgrounds of who and what they are. But we don't know anything about Pieter Kriel. We don't know if he's ever gone through the process of opening up a business to see how many red tape there is, especially if you're a white individual. We don't know his form of education. Did he go to university? Is he currently at university? Did he apply for a grant, or was it just gifted to him by his parents? Does he have a car to go to university? Does he speak about these benefits and privileges that he has? So it's one thing to stand on a pedestal and shout and lecture people versus telling us and showing us what you've done. So what has Pieter Kriel given up? Because he's expecting everybody else that pay taxes, that started their own businesses, that contributes to society through taxes. He's asking them to give up more and to, bow down. But what has he given up? We don't know, because the media hasn't told us. He hasn't told us. We don't know his background. And I would love to know, to be honest with you, I would love to know, is he registered for tax? Has he tried to open up a business? Has he paid for his own university fees? Is he at university? We don't know. So it's all good and well to have a hot take, but what experience do you have behind it? And I'm really trying to be as balanced as I can with the stuff that I just heard. Based on this one interview and video alone, in which he is literally saying that companies should feel privileged to invest in South Africa. And once they invest in South Africa, they should know that the land doesn't belong to them. And then they should give 40 to 50% of their profits to the original landowners, who nobody knows who it actually is, right? I mean, it's quite absurd. It really is absurd. And if this is what the leftist media want you to follow and listen to, then that's going to be a very short stint, because it's all good and well to have your opinions, but we don't know what it's based off of. Have you suffered a little bit in your life? Have you only had privilege? And then the age-old question, who are you to speak on behalf of black people? Because that is what you're doing. Even though you try and reject it and you say, I'm a voice besides, no, you're not. You're taking up the space at the moment. Mainstream media is putting you on a pedestal, and you are taking the spotlight away from a black individual that might be actually living through what you are explaining. So once again, as is always the case with woke leftists, is they take somebody else's space and then they try and speak on behalf of those people. And another thing, of course, is the fact that he often criticizes white people and Afrikaners, which is, absurd, because he places people in a box and assumes that everybody in that grouping thinks and feels exactly the same way. So if that is what he truly believes, then he must really hate his mom and dad and his family and himself. Which, if that is the case, then please do not lecture to me, because I don't hate myself and I don't hate my family. I can be fully aware of what's going on in this country and try and rectify it without trying to lecture people, because white people, and especially Afrikaners, know that we do not like leaders speaking on our behalf. You can admit it, or you don't have to, but it's true. Now imagine, already you have a culture and to some extent an ethnicity in South Africa. I mean, I don't really know English Afrikaners and what if they allow this, but I do know that Afrikaners don't like when leaders speak on their behalf. And here you've got a 21-year-old, and the age is important in this aspect, trying to lecture Afrikaners and trying to act like he's the voice of Afrikaners and what they think and what they feel. And that is where you're already messing up terribly. And that is probably why you are getting the response that you are getting on social media. All right, so in conclusion, Pieter, I understand that you are on a high at the moment because mainstream media is loving you. You're the darling of mainstream media and you are getting so many new followers and likes. And, you know, for a 21-year-old, that might be exciting. And that's probably the most important thing in your life at the moment. That's all good and well. And I'm really not using it to criticize you. But I don't think you realize that you are being used. And if you do realize that you're being used, then maybe you deserve it. Eventually what's going to happen. And I can tell you what's going to happen. You're going to eventually fade into insignificance. Then you're going to try and get more radical to get back into the spotlight. And the media is just going to avoid you even more because they will have their new shiny toy by then. So enjoy it while it lasts. It's not going to last very long based on previous white saviors that mainstream media tried to portray. But what I can tell you is perhaps while you're going through this process, maybe just reevaluate your beliefs in the sense of what you're actually saying. If you honestly believe that companies that aren't invested in South Africa, that want to invest in South Africa, need to give 40 to 50% of their turnover, not profit, their turnover, and hand it over to government or to the people of South Africa that is the original landowners, then you're going to have a bad time. Because that's just a terrible Marxist, socialist, communist policy that is never, ever going to fly. Like I said right in the beginning, we have 1% economic growth. Not even. We have less than 1% economic growth. And what you are suggesting here, if that had to be implemented, it would go to negative growth. We would be declining. We would not even have 0.0001% growth. And your age is showing here. People say don't use his age against him. Well, I'm sorry. Clearly he does not understand how economics work and how capitalism works and how job creation works. I mean, it's the most basic of principles. A company is not going to go and invest in a country if they already have to give 40 or 50% of their turnover away. Then they'll just go to Argentina or India where, hey, they can buy the land for 2 or 3 or 4 million rand, build what they need to, and the profit is theirs, because they are creating jobs in that country. But in South Africa, apparently, where we have 45% unemployment rate for the broad definition, apparently we don't need jobs. That's not the most important thing. What the most important thing is in this country is land. So screw your jobs, screw the stability for families to have an income. No. We need to share in the land. So the right thing to do is to say, everybody, come and invest in South Africa. We promise we will never, ever take your property away from you. Just provide us with job security. So that's the one thing that is right and will lead to more jobs, lower unemployment, a thriving economy. That's the one option. Pieter's option is, we're not going to take the land away from you, but you're going to give us 40 to 50% of your turnover. And if you don't, you're not welcome in South Africa. Which one of the two is going to be successful? Because you can either have jobs, a salary, and that creates more taxpayers, that creates unemployment to go lower, versus fuck all over here. So no jobs because no company is going to do it. No jobs, no decrease of unemployment. But hey, the land is still there and it still looks beautiful. So everybody that could have a job can drive there or walk there because they can't afford a car. And then they can go and look at that beautiful piece of land and just say, hey, it's so beautiful. So beautiful. One day, there will be a company on here and we'll share in its profits. One day will turn out to be never. Anyway, that's all I got to say. Be sure to go and check out more content of Pieter Kriel. I'm actually promoting Pieter Kriel. Go and look at what woke leftism gives you and then decide whether that's for you or not for you. And that's all I got to say. Please be sure to smash the like button. Please be sure to subscribe. Please be sure to share this video far and wide. It'll be greatly appreciated. And then if you support me and you support my channel, then please consider becoming a member. You can do so by clicking the join button below. And that's all I got to say. Till later. Cheers and peace out.
You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say, I wear my massacre. You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say, I wear my massacre. I wear my massacre. You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say, I wear my massacre. I wear my massacre.